People who live near disposal sites has a higher proximity of getting cancer, birth defects, and asthma. Man, the Olowalu gotta fight like the Nanakuli residents. We gotta fight and stop this.
That if you desecrate this land, we're going to have a lot of wind. We're going to have a lot of flood.
Okay. I made the deliberate decision not to do social media live. I felt like I didn't want people to think we were showboating. Like, oh, look, we're meeting with the Olowalu community. Come watch us live on Facebook.
Now, I want to make something really clear. I work for DLNR. I am the branch chief for the History and Culture branch. Again, we go back to FEMA saying we honor the culture and all that, but you guys didn't. Everybody here is speaking from their hearts because they live here. FEMA said, oh, we're listening to the culture. It's been saying that for 3 months. Every time you look at the newspaper, that's what it said. But you guys didn't.
You want to come to Olowalu and bring the remains and the debris to Olowalu. You gotta come and ask the people from Olowalu.
In the early onset, we did entertain the idea of shipping the debris off island. However, for various reasons, that was not gonna be able to happen. The main reason was that we got denied by FEMA, our proposed project for the final disposition site for the debris. Again, this is the old closed dump. This here is an active cinder pit.
Because of the cinder cones, this is why this place is called Olowalu. And what do the cinder cones represent? Pele's embryos. And now you have this idea that you're going to fill her now empty embryos with toxic waste.
And it's so close to our precious reefs. Why is our neighborhood being stuck with landfill over all these years? So Olowalu had a landfill for decades. And now they want to put another landfill or disposal site here again?
Typically, our county community meetings, we film and broadcast live. This one, we decided not to. We thought it would be a better way to talk story and be here with, Olowalu, with all of you, before we start broadcasting to the world.
Yeah, we are descendants of people that were here since time immemorial, and nobody came to talk to us. And another thing that the county failed today is when you come into somebody else's ahupua'a, especially with Hawaiian people, gotta go see them, you gotta go talk to them, you gotta introduce yourself to them, and they introduce themselves to you. You didn't do that.
We just aren't Facebooking it live or making it like some big, major event. That was our decision, deliberately made that way.
Anyway, we're here to talk about the Lahaina wildfire disposition project that we're working on. As we all know, August 8th happened, and it was determined that there is about 400,000 tons of debris from that fire that's laying out there in the Lahaina right now. For public health and safety, for their safety, our friends, our family, we need to get that debris into a contained, safe site. I gotta say, Mother Nature has been very gracious to us so far. It has been a concern that when the big rains come, what's gonna happen? We all gotta think about that. We did need to look at a place to put this debris. We looked at all different places all over the island. In the early onset, we did entertain the idea of shipping the debris off island. However, for various reasons, that was not gonna be able to happen. The main reason was that we got denied by FEMA.
The narration from FEMA has always been, we work with the culture. Nobody came to see us.
The other reason is we started to hear and from the community that lost loved ones, that the remains are in that ash. Lahaina debris, we're looking at this West Maui site in Olowalu. The other thing that we didn't realize early on that we realize now is there were a lot of churches that had ash in urns and that type of thing that were destroyed in the fire. So even the ash of past people, families, and friends, not just from the disaster, is all commingled in that debris. And the message we got from the Lahaina community was they wanted to keep it, one, intact, two, close to Lahaina, and they don't want it mixed with trash.
So a landfill is where you put rubbish. We're not putting rubbish in here. We're putting the ashes of people who may have died in the fire. So this is a final resting space for the people that were not recovered in the fire.
And I hope that we're not leveraging the people that died to get what the county wants, because I kind of see that right now.
The land that we're looking at is actually state-owned property. And thanks to Daniel Ornelas and his team and the state, they were gracious enough to work with us, and they understood the need of a place that could accept this Lahaina debris. So as you folks know, I think on October 27 was the BLNR meeting. So that meeting was basically for the transfer of the rights to use state property for county use. It's going to be a place that debris coming from Lahaina will be stored. It'll be lined. And then later, this blue area is actually our project, the county project, our proposed project for the final disposition site for the debris. Again, this is the old closed dump. This here is an active cinder pit. It has been mined up until, I believe, maybe a week or so ago from Hawaiian Cement. This is the access road, or I cannot see it, but there's the access road off of the highway, and the transfer station is here. This is what we're proposing to construct out there. This is a double liner system. When we say liner, it's a HDPE material. It's a black heavy gauge plastic.
In geosynthetic liners, I'm no expert, but I kind of Googled some data from EPA, and recent studies are coming out from the University of Missouri that those liners are only lasting in 27 years.
Which you see here, these green circles, it's a drainage and monitoring system for leachate. What leachate is a liquid byproduct that comes from debris, trash, whatnot. It's common at municipal solid waste sites because of the debris breaking down. However, in this location, the composition of the debris that we expect to come in is very dry. It's ash. A little bit of soil tack on it, a little bit of water for dust control, but it's fairly dry material. There's not going to be any larger pieces. The steel, the concrete, if you go out there, that's basically the two materials that are left out there. Those will be all repurposed, or as much as possible be recycled. Dual redundant monitoring and leachate system. The sides are at a slope that is workable to be constructed. I believe it's going to be 1-to-1. And again, sorry, I'm not the expert on this, and we have the experts to answer a lot of your questions later.
Sure. Hi, I'm Paul Amato. I'm a public information officer with EPA. That is a big question. I really would prefer to defer that to Superfund experts that we do have, of which I am not. So I'm not going to try and...
However, we are recording the meeting. That way we can, if you signed up and we can read your email, your address, and your handwriting, then we'll send you a link to the video so that you can share it out if you want, and you can also review it if you want. So the key to that is just make sure that we can read your email, and you'll get that in the next week. So that will help a little bit.
And how the area below the Olowalu dump was filled with caves, lava caves. So I'm saying these lava tubes exist under the dump. So all of these ashes and opala that they're going to dump in the dump area or above the dump area is not solid ground. And this may be something I shouldn't say about that area, but my grandma always told me, protect our land, and that's Olowalu. I'm just saying, it's a desecration to Olowalu. Olowalu is such a sacred place. Most of the ali'is vacationed in Olowalu. Why? Because it's a safe place. When there's tsunamis, we have nothing to worry about. All these years, my mom never left her home because she knew she was protected by her kupuna. All our kupuna that have passed and left have not left their land. They're still here. So I feel that if you desecrate this land, we're going to have a lot of wind. We're going to have a lot of floods. And I'm not threatening anybody, but that's just the way it is in our culture. You stay in your own area, you stay in your own ahupua'a, and you respect other people in their ahupua'a.
This was not a convenient decision. Obviously, I may or may not be able to convince you of that. This was an urgent decision. And I don't know if urgent and convenient means the same thing. We were so concerned about the winds and the rains coming back to Lahaina and washing all that ash and debris into the ocean and the reefs and our drinking water and our wastewater system. And that wasn't because we favor Lahaina people over Olowalu people. It's because we favor all people.
And what they found out is that people who live near disposal sites has a higher proximity of getting cancer, birth defects, and asthma.
Here we are. We're at my farm in Olowalu, and I want to point out what's going on over my shoulder over here. We're going to talk about this temporary site that they're recommending be a permanent site, and we need to get this into community discussions because everyone's driving right by it, but I don't know if they realize what's happening. And you can see the road behind me there, and we're going to show you a bunch of video and what's actually happening here. So if you feel like it's not right and you understand the ramifications of this, then you need to let it be known, because the county does not seem to know this, and they seem to think that the community supports this being put here. And so we're going to try to go through this, and this is a bit of community information that we're trying to put out to you right now. I say this with all humility. I don't mean to speak for anyone else. I'm simply putting it out there because I believe there needs to be a large discussion which involves our entire community, and especially Kanaka Maoli and all of the kupuna, because we need to hear what our community actually wants to happen. This could have repercussions far beyond what people think. And a few hundred yards from our most precious resource, the ocean. And these are the type of toxins that find themselves into the food chain and are what are destroying our ocean. So why are we going to take a chance with putting it right next to it on a cinder pit that's some of the most permeable stuff we know about? And right where I'm standing right here, actually closer to where the red flags are there's an underground stream that runs through here. There's another underground stream that runs right through the other side of it. This is all mapped out in fact. So we need to make these decisions based on these facts and not some of the stuff we're being told. So I want to point out that this was just sent to me. I need to point this out to everyone's attention that they are actually voting on the permanent site in 2 days. How is that possible? We were told this would be months out with much community involvement and some science and EPA. And this is what's happening right now. So people need to blow this up. They need to be at this meeting on Wednesday. And they also need to call these numbers and let people know how you feel about letting this happen. We're going to post a bunch more videos right after this with a lot more information. Wow, this is crazy. Let's get into their plan for the actual temporary site. You're talking about this containment liner. They're talking about putting a non-permeable soil underneath it, and then the native soil foundation. Let's point out it's cinder, one of the most permeable soil foundations that there are, which means that it has a high chance of leaking into the groundwater. Let's look at the rest of their model. This is substrate, all of the white area that you see. The red things are pipes for leachate. Leachate meaning if it rains in it, what happens to the water that goes down through it? How are you getting rid of that? So they say they have a system for pumping it. Where are you pumping it to? What is your protocol for that? These are the questions we need to be asking. They are using an 80 mil liner. HDPE, high density polyethylene. Correct us on that. They could be using a PVC liner, which is worse. So if you look at these first maps, we're looking at this area right here. So to put that in the context of what we see in front of us, that is right here. This map does not show that there's a 40 or 50 foot drop straight downhill right here. Where else is it? So it looks like that containment is taking place here. And then what they're digging out, what they show on the next sheet, is where the permanent area will go. And if they're not planning to put the permanent area there, then how come it's already halfway built? The permanent area is what they're working on. So it sounds to me like we need a lot of discussion about this. And why? Why are we worried about the liner leaking? If we're looking at some of the studies that have been done on the liners, they're rated for 100 years under zero stress environment. If you look at this situation, this is nowhere near a zero stress environment. And we have some of the numbers that we're going to share with you. But it says on this one we highlighted here, a zero stress installation is practically impossible to achieve. Wrinkles are unavoidable. So now you're going to go with an 80 mil liner under it, and you're saying that that's going to protect us for 70 years, 100 years. So what's in here? A whole list of things we have here for you. But if we look, which is already confirmed by the state, asbestos, copper, arsenic, dozens of heavy metals. But what we really want to look at, what they're not telling you and you don't see any information on, is let's talk about dioxins. Dioxins are considered to be the most toxic man-made substance and the 5th most toxic naturally occurring compound known to man. Let me just point out PVC. When PVC pipes are burned, they release dioxins, a group of highly toxic compounds that pose significant health stress. They include reproductive, developmental issues, immune system, hormonal influence, cancer. The productions of dioxin is particularly prevalent during the low and incomplete combustion of PVC, which contains high levels of chlorine. Something to be said for that. So is this what we want to put a few hundred yards from the ocean in a super permeable cinder bed? I think that we need to hear from our community about this and that we all need to make our concerns heard. And it's really important, that meeting on Wednesday and every Wednesday, I think that we need to show up and let people know that there should be better alternatives to this. The EPA is willing to ship all of this material off island. The county has told them that it is the community's will that it stay here for several reasons. Because of EV, bones, and other concerns. I'm not sure what the other concerns are. But if you look at the amount for the potential of that being in the ash, the repercussions of the danger of some of the toxic materials in here far outweigh, in my opinion. But I think this is a discussion for the entire community, so we need to show up. If you feel like I do, if you see the truths in what we're saying, that this needs more community discussion, then let's all get together and make this a call to action to really let your voices be heard and let people know. Are we all right putting something in a containment system that we're saying will last for 70 years? That's not enough. If we look at the numbers and some of the studies done on the PVC liners, I'm going to quote one right here. Of all the liners that have failed in the last 20 years, a very limited numbers of ways, but none have just worn out or generally degraded. And this is where the information comes on, or that they're a 100-year liner. Now, if you really look in this, however, our practical experience with HDPE, 30 years is what it's actually known to. Some say 25 years, some say 10 years. Guess what? They don't give you a 100-year warranty on it. They give you a 25-year warranty on it. And that's because it's based on the practical use. It's also based on the fact that there will be folds. There will be stress on it. I can't think of a more high-stress environment to be putting this and trying to protect our natural resources and groundwater. It seems ridiculous to me. So how do we get our community involved? Show up, make your voices heard. This Wednesday at the Civic Center, there's a meeting on it. And we're just going to constantly try to provide information and arm you with the facts. So Olowalu, being known as one of the most important mother reefs around here, and perhaps having spawned many of the other reefs that we surf on and whatnot, and we dive on and we eat off of, and that sequester carbon, our reef system is really important to us. We can show you footage all day long of stuff running out of the dump straight into the ocean. There is no mitigation there. If you look at how it's set up, all the drainage comes off of that hill right into the ocean right there. So I think one of the reasons why people aren't looking at these toxins, if you touch them, you're not going to die instantly. And so people think, oh, no big deal. But what's happening is as this stuff makes its way into our environment, and even every time we touch it, or every time we breathe it in, it's going to bioaccumulate in our system. What does that mean? So let's look at it in nature. These toxins are going to run off the hill. The algae is going to grab it. It's going to bioaccumulate in plant material, and then it's going to work its way up the food chain. Fish that eat plants, fish that eat fish, humans that eat fish. So it winds up all the way in us. And the more fish we eat with it, the more it accumulates in our system. So there are several ways for this to bioaccumulate, and it's one of those things that you don't see it right in front of you like a deadly poison because it doesn't kill you instantly. Some of this, we won't see the repercussions from this until 40 years. But we already know because we see the repercussion in other places. So I think that people should start to look at that, do your homework on what it is and what it means, demand that the county, the state, the powers that be test for it and release that data to the community so that we can make decisions based on facts. So this is the EPA's Ukumahami site where they took the most hazardous waste right after the fire. It was the first site, so the first stage. So these look like they're electric car batteries. They're brought in, wrapped in some sort of a liner. They're then put into a dumpster. They're unwrapped, thrown on a pit, and opened like a can opener with an excavator. They then take out the individual cells. If we look in the other pit where they're actually taking the cells to, we watch them drive over it with a steamroller, but then we watch the steamroller drive right on the ground that doesn't have the liner. That's called cross-contamination. Those cells, many of them have been burned and compromised and already released some of these toxins into the shells they were taken out of. You can see the bin with batteries left in it that have a lot of material. That was filled up with rain and just drained right out of the bottom of it. And you can see from the pump that's in it that it was just getting pumped right into the ground. The empty shells in the container that has been left there for months now has had high winds on it, has been filled with rainwater and just dripped out to the bottom onto the land with no liner. Are they testing that? Is that federal protocol? The mini excavator that's actually grabbing the toxic material has no safeguards in place. It can be seen driving around the site, grabbing other materials and causing cross-contamination with no protocols in place. This is the EPA. We expect more out of them. When they tell us it's great, it's going to work, we just listen to them. But if we actually look at what's happening on the ground, this is not always true. If you look, there's nothing to stop from wind. A lot of those days they were working out there, it was 30, 40 mile an hour wind. It rained a few days later after this. You'll notice there's no roofs or any sort of protection from water on here. If this is what they deem the most hazardous waste, then what would the protocol be for the dump for something they're considering less hazardous? Doesn't look like a very good track record to me. This stuff is so toxic, we have to follow it to every strict measure. So if this is an example of what's going to happen at the dump and the people that are in charge of it, we should be asking questions.